I still remember the first time I saw Daniel standing in the doorway of our shared apartment, backlit by the afternoon sun streaming through the windows. He was tall, with dark curly hair that fell just above his eyes, and when he smiled, his whole face lit up in a way that made my heart skip a beat. I told myself it was just nerves about meeting my new roommate, nothing more. "You must be Ethan," he said, extending his hand. His grip was warm and firm, and I noticed the way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he smiled. "I'm Daniel. Looks like we're going to be sharing this place for a while." That was 6 months ago, and in many ways it felt like both a lifetime and just yesterday. Daniel had turned out to be everything I could have hoped for in a roommate, and if I was being honest with myself, everything I'd never dared to hope for in something more. He was kind, funny, considerate about noise levels and cleaning schedules, and had this incredible way of making even the most mundane Tuesday evening feel special. We'd fallen into an easy rhythm together. Morning coffee shared at the kitchen counter, him telling me about his work as a graphic designer while I talked about my classes at the university where I was finishing my master's degree in literature. Evening movie marathons on the couch, our shoulders touching as we argued about plot holes and character motivations. Late night conversations that stretched until dawn, sharing dreams and fears and embarrassing stories from our pasts. Well, almost all our stories. There was one thing I'd kept carefully hidden, locked away behind a wall of half-truths and strategic omissions. One secret that grew heavier with each passing day, with each moment of genuine connection, with each time Daniel looked at me with those warm brown eyes, and I felt the weight of my deception pressing down on my chest. I had type 1 diabetes, severe, difficult to manage, with complications that sometimes left me weak and shaking in the middle of the night, and Daniel had no idea. It wasn't that I'd actively lied to him. I told myself in those quiet moments when guilt gnawed at my conscience. I just hadn't told him. When we first met to discuss moving in together, the conversation had flowed so naturally that there never seemed to be a right moment to bring it up. And then we'd signed the lease, and he'd made some offhand comment about how great it was that we were both healthy, active guys who could keep up with each other, and I'd smiled and nodded and let the moment pass. After that, it became easier to just keep hiding it. I was careful, so careful. I kept my insulin and testing supplies in my bedroom, hidden in a locked drawer in my nightstand. I set silent alarms on my phone to remind me to check my blood sugar. I learned to recognize the warning signs early enough that I could excuse myself before Daniel noticed anything was wrong. It was exhausting maintaining the facade, but I told myself it was necessary. Daniel didn't need to be burdened with my medical issues. We were roommates, friends at best, even if sometimes I caught him looking at me with an expression I couldn't quite read, even if sometimes our hands would brush while reaching for the same coffee mug and the contact would send electricity shooting up my arm. The thing about secrets, though, is that they have a way of growing. What started as a simple omission had become this tangled web of small lies and careful evasions. When Daniel suggested we go hiking together, I had to make excuses about my schedule. When he invited me to a weekend camping trip with his friends, I claimed I had a paper due. Every invitation to do something spontaneous, every suggestion that we grab dinner somewhere that might not have food I could safely eat without calculating carbs and insulin ratios, became another brick in the wall between us. I could see the hurt in his eyes sometimes, the confusion when I pulled away or made another excuse. I hated myself for it, but what choice did I have? The alternative was telling him the truth, watching his expression change from warm affection to pity or worse, obligation. I'd seen it happen before with other people in my life. The way they started treating me like I was fragile, made of glass. The way every interaction became colored by my condition, defined by it. I couldn't bear the thought of Daniel looking at me that way. So I kept my secret, and I watched as something beautiful and terrifying grew between us despite my best efforts to keep him at arm's length. The way his face lit up when I came home. The way he'd saved me the last cookie from the batch he'd baked, leaving it on the counter with a little note in his messy handwriting. The way we'd somehow migrated from opposite ends of the couch to sitting pressed together, sharing blankets and body heat. The way he'd started touching me more, casual brushes of fingers, a hand on my shoulder that one incredible evening when we'd both been a little tipsy and he'd played with my hair while we talked, his fingers gentle and deliberate, sending shivers down my spine. I was falling for him, had fallen for him, past tense, already gone, completely and utterly lost. And the secret between us felt like a chasm I had no idea how to cross. It was a Wednesday evening in early November when everything started to unravel. The weather had turned cold, that bitter Chicago cold that seeps into your bones and never quite leaves. I'd been feeling off all day, my blood sugar readings higher than they should be, bouncing erratically despite my best efforts to stabilize them. I'd had a stressful week. Midterms were approaching, I was behind on my thesis work, and I'd been sleeping poorly, all of which played havoc with my glucose levels. I knew I should probably skip the dinner Daniel had planned, the one he'd been talking about excitedly for days. He'd found this new recipe he wanted to try, some kind of homemade pasta with a sauce that required hours of preparation. But the thought of disappointing him, of seeing that wounded look in his eyes again, was more than I could bear. So I did my calculations, took my insulin, and told myself it would be fine. The dinner was incredible. Daniel had outdone himself, the apartment filled with the rich aromas of garlic and tomatoes and fresh basil. He'd set the table with candles, put on soft music in the background. It felt almost like a date, and my heart ached with the impossibility of it all. "This is amazing," I told him, and meant it. The food was delicious, and even more than that, the effort he'd put into it, the way he kept glancing at me to gauge my reaction, made something warm bloom in my chest. "Yeah," he grinned, that brilliant smile that made me forget why I'd ever thought keeping my distance was a good idea. I was worried the sauce might be too acidic, but I think it turned out okay. More than okay, you could open a restaurant. He laughed, ducking his head in that adorable way he did when he was pleased but embarrassed by a compliment. Says the guy who burned water last week. That was one time, and I still maintain that the pot was defective. We bantered back and forth, falling into our familiar easy rhythm, and for a moment I let myself forget about everything else. Forget about the secret wedged between us, forget about my blood sugar readings from earlier, forget about all the reasons this could never work. In that moment, in the candlelight, with Daniel's eyes soft and warm across the table, I let myself just be happy. It was a mistake. I felt it starting about an hour after dinner, that familiar, creeping sensation that something was wrong. My vision started to blur slightly at the edges. My hands began to tremble so subtly that I could hide it by keeping them in my lap. The room felt too warm, then too cold, then too warm again. My blood sugar was dropping, fast. I'd miscalculated the insulin, or maybe the stress of the week had made my body more sensitive than usual, or maybe it was a combination of factors. The why didn't matter. What mattered was that I needed to get glucose into my system now before things got worse. "I'm just going to use the bathroom," I said, standing up carefully. The room tilted slightly, and I gripped the edge of the table to steady myself. "You okay?" Daniel's voice was colored with concern. "You look a little pale." "I'm fine, just need to splash some water on my face. That pasta was rich, you know, in the best way," I added quickly, seeing his expression start to fall. I made it to my bedroom, hands shaking as I fumbled with the lock on my nightstand drawer. My glucose tablets were there, along with my testing kit and emergency supplies. I popped 3 tablets into my mouth, the chalky sweetness coating my tongue as I chewed mechanically. "Check your blood sugar," the rational part of my brain insisted. "You need to know how bad it is." But that would take time, and Daniel would come looking for me if I was gone too long. Better to just wait a few minutes for the tablets to work, then go back out and act normal. I could do a proper check later once he'd gone to bed. I splashed cold water on my face in my in-suit bathroom, staring at my reflection in the mirror. My skin was clammy, too pale, and there was a slight tremor in my hands that I couldn't quite control. But I'd been through worse. I just needed to hold it together for a little while longer. When I returned to the living room, Daniel had moved to the couch and started queuing up a movie. "I was thinking we could watch that new thriller everyone's been talking about," he said, patting the seat next to him, "the one with the unreliable narrator." "Sounds perfect," I said, settling onto the couch. Not too close, I told myself, even though every fiber of my being wanted to curl into his side like I'd been doing more and more lately. But Daniel had other ideas. As soon as the movie started, he shifted closer, our sides pressing together. "You're still cold," he murmured, reaching for the blanket we kept draped over the back of the couch. He pulled it over both of us, and suddenly we were cocooned together, his warmth seeping into my skin. It should have been perfect. It was perfect in a way, except for the fact that my blood sugar was still dropping despite the glucose tablets, and I could feel myself starting to sweat, my heart racing in my chest. "Not now," I pleaded silently with my body. "Please, not now." But my body had never been particularly good at listening to what I wanted. "Ethan," Daniel's voice seemed to come from far away. "Hey, are you okay? You're shaking." I tried to respond, but my tongue felt thick in my mouth. The room was starting to spin and dark spots were dancing at the edges of my vision. I started, but the word came out slurred wrong. I just need. Jesus, Ethan, you're burning up and your skin is all clammy. Daniel's hand was on my forehead now, then moving to check my pulse at my wrist. Your heart is racing. I think we need to get you to the hospital. No, I managed, but it came out as barely a whisper. Just need my room's nightstand. What, Ethan, you're not making sense. Stay with me, okay? There was panic in his voice now, raw and sharp. I'm calling 911. Drawer, I forced out, gripping his arm with what little strength I had left. Locked drawer, nightstand, code 327. I saw the confusion flash across his face, but then I was sliding sideways, my body no longer responding to my commands. The last thing I remember before the darkness took me was Daniel's arms catching me, his voice saying my name over and over like a prayer. When I woke up, I was in a hospital bed. The harsh fluorescent lights made me squint, and there was an IV in my arm, steady drip of fluids that I knew without asking contained dextrose. My mouth was dry, my head pounding, but I was alive and conscious, and that meant the worst had passed. And then I saw Daniel. He was slumped in a chair beside my bed, his head in his hands. He looked up when he heard me stir, and the expression on his face made my heart clench. Relief, yes, but also hurt and confusion and something that might have been betrayal. You're awake, he said quietly. The doctor said you would be, but... How long was I out? A few hours. They said you had severe hypoglycemia, dangerously low blood sugar. His voice was carefully neutral, but I could hear the tension underneath. They asked me about your medical history. I had to tell them I didn't know anything. That's when I realized I had to go to your nightstand, find whatever you were trying to tell me about. Oh God, he knew. He'd seen everything. Daniel, Type 1 diabetes, he continued, and now there was an edge to his voice. Diagnosed 10 years ago, that's what the medical alert bracelet in your drawer said, the one you apparently never wear, along with enough insulin and testing supplies to stock a small pharmacy. I can explain. Can you? He stood up abruptly, packing to the window and back. Because I've been sitting here for hours trying to understand, Ethan. We've lived together for 6 months. 6 months of what I thought was us becoming something, and you never thought to mention that you have a serious medical condition. The hurt in his voice was like a knife to my chest. I wanted to tell you. When, after you ended up in a coma, after I found you dead on the couch? His voice cracked on the last word, and I saw him swipe at his eyes. Do you have any idea how terrifying it was, watching you collapse, not knowing what was wrong or how to help you? I thought you were dying, Ethan, and I couldn't do anything except watch. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears streaming down my face now. I'm so sorry, I never meant for this to happen. Why didn't you tell me? He moved closer, and I could see that his eyes were red like he'd been crying. Did you not trust me? Did you think I would? What, kick you out, treat you differently? Yes, the word burst out of me raw and honest. Yes, I thought you'd treat me differently, because everyone does, Daniel, everyone. As soon as people find out I stop being just Ethan, I become Ethan with diabetes. Every interaction gets filtered through it. People get weird and uncomfortable, and they start treating me like I'm fragile, like I might break at any moment. So instead you just lied to me for 6 months. I didn't lie, I just didn't tell you. That's the same thing? He ran his hands through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. God, Ethan, all those times you made excuses about not doing things with me, all the times you pulled away when I thought we were getting closer. Was that all because of this? I couldn't meet his eyes, some of it, maybe most of it. Do you know what that felt like for me? His voice was quieter now, but somehow that made it worse. I thought I was doing something wrong. I thought maybe you didn't feel the same way I did, that I was reading signals that weren't there. I've been driving myself crazy trying to figure out what I'd done to make you push me away. Wait, the same way you felt? What do you mean, the same way you felt? I asked, my heart suddenly pounding for an entirely different reason. He let out a short, bitter laugh. Really? We're doing this now? Fine, I'm in love with you, Ethan. I have been for months. And I thought maybe, based on the way you looked at me sometimes, the way we were together, that maybe you felt the same way. But then you'd pull back, make excuses, and I'd convince myself I was imagining things. Daniel. I made you that dinner tonight because I was planning to tell you, to finally be honest about how I felt and hope that maybe you'd give us a chance." He laughed again, but there was no humor in it. "I guess we both had secrets we weren't sharing." "It's not the same thing," I protested weakly. "Isn't it? We both hid the truth because we were scared. The only difference is my secret was about feelings and yours could have killed you." He was right. God help me, he was completely right. "I'm sorry," I said again, knowing the words were inadequate but having nothing else to offer. "You're right about all of it. I was scared and I handled this in the worst possible way. But Daniel, please believe me when I say it wasn't about not trusting you. It was about liking you too much to risk losing what we had." "What did we have, Ethan? Really?" He sat back down in the chair, suddenly looking exhausted. "How can we have anything real if you can't be honest with me about something this fundamental?" I didn't have an answer for that. We sat in silence for a long moment, the beeping of the IV machine the only sound in the room. "The doctor said you can go home tomorrow," Daniel finally said. "They want to keep you overnight for observation, make sure your levels stay stable." "Okay. I'll come pick you up, we can talk more then." He stood up, grabbing his jacket from the back of the chair. "I need some time to process all of this." "Daniel, wait," I reached out, catching his hand. "For what it's worth, I'm in love with you too. I have been since probably the second week we lived together, and I know I don't have any right to ask this, but please don't give up on us, not yet." He looked down at our joined hands, and for a moment I thought he might pull away. But then his fingers tightened around mine just briefly before he let go. "Get some rest, Ethan, we'll talk tomorrow." And then he was gone, and I was alone with the consequences of my choices and the terrifying hope that maybe, somehow, we could find a way through this. The apartment felt different when I came home the next day, not physically. Everything was exactly where it had been, but there was a weight in the air, a tension that hadn't existed before. Or maybe it had always been there, hidden beneath the surface of our easy companionship, and I'd just been too busy maintaining my facade to notice. Daniel was quiet on the drive home from the hospital, his hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than necessary. I tried to start a conversation a few times, but each attempt had died in the face of his monosyllabic responses. By the time we pulled into our parking spot, I felt like I might shatter from the silence. "I'll help you upstairs," he said, the first full sentence he'd spoken to me. "I can manage, I'm fine now." "Ethan," he turned to look at me and the expression on his face was complicated. "Please, let me help you." So I did, letting him hover as we made our way to the apartment, accepting his hand at my elbow when I stumbled slightly on the stairs. It was both wonderful and terrible, having him this close, feeling his care and concern while knowing I might have destroyed any chance we'd had at something more. Once inside, Daniel guided me to the couch, practically pushing me down onto it. "Sit, I'll make you something to eat. The hospital said you should have regular meals, keep your blood sugar stable." "Daniel, you don't have to." "I know I don't have to." He ran a hand through his hair, that gesture I'd come to recognize as his tell when he was stressed or worried. "But I'm going to anyway because apparently I can't just stop caring about you even when I'm angry with you." He disappeared into the kitchen before I could respond, and I heard the sounds of him opening cabinets, pulling out ingredients. I leaned back against the couch cushions, exhaustion washing over me. The physical recovery from a severe hypoglycemic episode was hard enough, but the emotional toll of everything that had happened was even worse. 20 minutes later, Daniel emerged with a plate of scrambled eggs, toast, and fruit. Simple food, easy to calculate the carbs for. He'd clearly been doing research. "Thank you," I said softly as he set the plate in front of me. He nodded and sat down in the armchair across from me, not on the couch beside me like he normally would have. The distance felt like miles. We sat in silence while I ate, and I could feel his eyes on me, watching. When I was done, I set the plate aside and took a deep breath. "Can we talk now?" "That's why I'm here," he said. "I don't know where to start." "How about the beginning? When were you diagnosed?" So I told him about being 17, about the months of unexplained symptoms before the diagnosis, about the terror and confusion of suddenly having to manage a condition that could kill me if I made a mistake. I told him about learning to give myself injections, about the hospitalizations when I got it wrong, about the constant vigilance required just to stay alive. My parents were amazing, I said. Supportive, educated themselves, did everything right, but I could see it in their eyes sometimes, that fear, like they were just waiting for something to go wrong. And my friends, most of them meant well, but suddenly every hangout became about my diabetes. Can you eat this? Should you be doing that? Are you sure you're okay? I appreciated the concern, but it was suffocating. So when you moved out for college, you decided to keep it secret? Daniel asked. Not exactly. I told my roommate freshman year. He was pre-med, I thought he'd understand, and he did in a way too well. He started monitoring me constantly, keeping track of what I ate, asking about my blood sugar readings multiple times a day. He meant well, but it felt like having a nurse, not a roommate. We ended up having a huge fight about it, and I moved out sophomore year. I picked at a thread on the couch cushion, unable to meet Daniel's eyes. After that, I got better at managing on my own, and I decided it was easier to just not tell people. Let them see me as normal, whatever that means, not having to deal with the pity or the awkwardness or people treating me like I'm going to break. Is that how you see me? Daniel's voice was tight. As someone who would pity you or treat you like you're fragile? No, I finally looked up at him. That's the thing, Daniel, I didn't want you to see me that way because I liked how you saw me. You looked at me like I was just Ethan, not Ethan the diabetic. And the longer I went without telling you, the harder it got. How do you bring up something like that after months of hiding it? You just do, he said simply. You say, hey, I have something important to tell you. That's it, that's all it takes. I know, God, I know, and I'm not trying to make excuses for what I did. It was wrong and it was selfish and it almost got me killed. I swallowed hard. But please understand, it wasn't about not trusting you, it was about being terrified of losing what we had. What did we have, though? He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. You said that last night, but I still don't understand. How can we have had something real when you were hiding such a fundamental part of yourself? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe we didn't, maybe it was all built on a lie and that's why it's crumbling now. I don't want to believe that. His voice was quiet but intense. These past 6 months they've been the happiest I've been in years, and I don't think that was fake, not all of it, but I also can't shake the feeling that I didn't really know you, that I fell in love with some version of you that you constructed, not the real you. Those words hit like a physical blow. That's not true, everything else was real, Daniel. My feelings for you, our conversations, all those moments we shared, those were all real. The only thing I hid was the diabetes. The only thing, he repeated. Ethan, it's not just about the medical condition, it's about the lying by omission. It's about all those times you pulled away or made excuses when I could see you wanted to say yes. It's about how you let me think I was doing something wrong when really you were just trying to manage your secret. He stood up, packing to the window. Do you know what I thought when you kept turning down my invitations? I thought you weren't interested in me that way, that I'd misread everything between us. I spent weeks convincing myself to get over you, to just accept being roommates and friends. And then we'd have one of those perfect moments where you'd let your guard down and I'd see something in your eyes that made me think maybe I wasn't crazy after all. I'm sorry, I whispered, tears streaming down my face now. I'm so sorry for putting you through that. I know you are, he turned back to face me. And I'm trying to understand, I really am. But Ethan, I need you to help me here. I need you to explain how we move forward from this because I don't know. Do you want to move forward? I asked, afraid of the answer but needing to know. Or is this too much? Have I broken something that can't be fixed? He was quiet for a long moment, and my heart hammered in my chest as I waited for him to speak. I don't know, he finally said. I love you, that hasn't changed, but I also don't know if I can trust you right now, and without trust I don't know what we have. It was fair, more than fair actually. I'd broken his trust in the worst possible way and now I had to live with the consequences. What do you need from me? I asked. Tell me what I can do to start earning back your trust and I'll do it. I need honesty, complete, total honesty. No more secrets, no more omissions. If something's wrong, if you're having a bad day with your blood sugar, if you're worried or scared or struggling, I need you to tell me. Not because I want to monitor you or treat you like you're fragile, but because I want to be someone you can rely on. I can do that. Can you? Because this isn't just about telling me you have diabetes, it's about being vulnerable with me, letting me in even when it's hard. Are you really ready for that? Was I? It terrified me, the thought of being that open, that exposed. But the alternative was losing Daniel, and that terrified me even more. I'm ready to try, I said. I'm ready to work on it to learn how to let you in. It won't be perfect right away and I'll probably mess up sometimes, but I want to try, if you'll let me. Daniel came back to the couch, sitting down next to me this time, not touching but closer than he'd been. I need time, Ethan, time to process all of this, to figure out how I feel beyond the initial hurt and anger. Can you give me that? As much time as you need. But I also don't want to lose you, he continued. So maybe we can figure this out together, take it slow, relearn each other with all the cards on the table. Yeah. Hope bloomed in my chest, fragile but real. I'd like that a lot. Okay, he let out a long breath. Okay, so let's start there. Tell me about your diabetes, not the medical history stuff, but the practical day-to-day things. What do I need to know? What should I watch for? So I told him. I explained about checking my blood sugar, about the insulin pump I wore but usually hid under my clothes. I told him about the symptoms of both high and low blood sugar, about the emergency glucagon kit in my nightstand drawer. I walked him through what a typical day looked like for me, all the mental calculations and adjustments I made constantly without even thinking about it. He listened intently, asking questions, taking mental notes, and slowly, gradually, some of the tension in the room began to ease. I bought some books, he admitted after I'd finished. Last night after I left the hospital, I went to a bookstore and got everything they had on type 1 diabetes. I've been reading them all morning. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to, I needed to understand. He finally met my eyes fully. If we're going to do this, if we're going to try to make this work, I need to educate myself, not to hover over you or monitor you, but to be able to support you properly. Thank you, I said, fresh tears spilling over. That means more than you know. Hey, he reached over, wiping away my tears with his thumb. It was the first time he'd touched me with any real tenderness since this whole thing started, and I leaned into it, starved for that connection. We'll figure this out. It's going to take work and there are going to be hard conversations ahead, but we'll figure it out. Promise. I promise to try, that's all I can promise right now. It was enough, it had to be enough. We spent the rest of the afternoon talking, really talking, in a way we never had before. I told him about my fears and insecurities around my diabetes, about the frustration of managing a condition that never gave me a break. He told me about his own fears, about watching his grandmother die from complications of type 2 diabetes when he was a teenager, about how scared he'd been when he'd seen me collapse. That's part of why I reacted so strongly, he admitted. It brought back all these memories I thought I'd dealt with, watching someone I care about suffering because of diabetes, feeling helpless to do anything about it. I didn't know about your grandmother. I don't talk about it much. It was a long time ago and type 2 is different from what you have. But the fear is the same, you know, the feeling that this disease might take someone I love away from me. I took his hand, interlacing our fingers. I can't promise nothing will ever go wrong, I wish I could, but diabetes is unpredictable. What I can promise is that I'll be more careful, I'll let you help me when I need it, and I'll never hide something this important from you again. That's all I'm asking for. As the sun set outside our windows, painting the apartment in shades of gold and amber, I felt something shift between us. The trust was damaged, yes, but not destroyed. We had a long road ahead of us, but at least now we were on it together. The days following my hospital stay were an adjustment for both of us. Daniel had meant what he said about taking it slow, and we fell into a new rhythm that was both similar to and different from what we'd had before. We were still roommates, still friends, but there was a cautiousness between us now that hadn't existed before. Daniel was careful not to push too hard, to give me the space he thought I needed. And I was hyper-aware of every moment, every interaction, terrified of doing or saying something that might damage the fragile trust we were trying to rebuild. One of the biggest changes was that I stopped hiding my diabetes management. The first morning after I came home from the hospital, I did my blood sugar check at the kitchen counter while Daniel made coffee, instead of hiding in my room like I'd been doing for months. He watched me prick my finger, watched the meter display my reading, and I saw him mentally cataloging the number even though he didn't comment on it. "Is that good?" he finally asked as I washed my hands. "It's a little high but not dangerous. I'll take some insulin to bring it down." "Do you want me to not watch? I don't want to make you uncomfortable." "No, it's fine. I need to get used to this not hiding." I pulled up my shirt slightly to access my insulin pump programming in the correct dosage. See, not that dramatic. You make it look easy. It's not really, but I've been doing it for so long that it's second nature now. I accepted the coffee mug he handed me. Thank you, by the way, for trying to understand all this. Of course, he leaned against the counter, cradling his own mug. Can I ask you something? Anything. That night at dinner when you got so sick, did you know it was going to happen? Like, did you feel it coming and just hope it would be okay? I sighed, nodding. I knew something was off all day. My readings were erratic and I was stressed, which doesn't help. I probably should have skipped dinner or at least been more conservative with my insulin dosage. But you'd been so excited about cooking for me and I trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. And you didn't want to disappoint me, Daniel finished quietly. Ethan, you almost died because you didn't want to disappoint me. Do you see how fucked up that is? I know it was stupid and dangerous and I should have just told you what was happening. It's not about stupid or dangerous, it's about you valuing my feelings over your own safety. He set his mug down, running both hands through his hair in that stressed gesture I knew so well. I need you to promise me something. Okay. Promise me that from now on you'll never make a decision about your health based on what you think I want or how I might feel. Your safety comes first always, even if it means canceling plans or disappointing me. I promise, I said and meant it, my health comes first. He nodded, seeming satisfied with that answer, and we finished our coffee in companionable silence. It was a small moment, but it felt significant, a step in the right direction. Over the next few weeks, we settled into our new normal. Daniel started coming with me to my endocrinologist appointments, sitting in the waiting room and then listening as the doctor went over my A1C results and discussed adjustments to my treatment plan. He asked intelligent questions, took notes, and never once made me feel like a burden. At home, he learned to recognize the signs when my blood sugar was dropping or spiking. He kept glucose tablets in his pocket when we went out together. He researched restaurants before we went to dinner, making sure there would be options I could easily calculate. But he did it all so naturally, so seamlessly, that it never felt like he was hovering or treating me like I was fragile. How do you do that? I asked him one night as we walked home from a movie. Do what? Take care of me without making me feel like you're taking care of me. He smiled, bumping his shoulder against mine. Because I'm not taking care of you, not really. You've been managing this by yourself for years and you're damn good at it. I'm just being present, being someone you can lean on if you need to. It means everything to me, you know, the way you've handled all this. Yeah, he stopped walking, turning to face me under the glow of a streetlight. Because there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about. My heart sped up. Okay. We've been doing this careful dance for weeks now, being roommates, being friends, rebuilding trust, and I appreciate that we needed this time. But Ethan, I need to know where we're going with this. Are we working towards something more, or are we just going to stay in this holding pattern forever? I took a deep breath. This was it, the moment I'd been both hoping for and dreading. What do you want? I want you, he said simply. I want us. I want to wake up next to you and go to sleep next to you and not have to pretend that we're just friends when what I feel for you is so much more than that. Daniel. But I need to know that you're ready for that you're ready to really let me in all the way, no more walls, no more holding back. He reached out, cupping my face in his hands. I love you, Ethan. I've loved you through all of this mess and I'll keep loving you, but I need to know if you can love me back without being afraid of it. Tears pricked at my eyes. I do love you back, I'm terrified of it, but I love you so much it scares me sometimes. Then let's be scared together. He leaned in, his forehead resting against mine. Let's figure this out as we go. What do you say? Instead of answering with words, I closed the distance between us and kissed him. It was our first kiss, sweet and tentative and perfect. When we pulled apart, both of us were smiling. So is that a yes? He asked, grinning. That's a yes, I confirmed, definitely a yes. We walked the rest of the way home hand in hand, and when we got to our apartment, Daniel pulled me into another kiss as soon as the door closed behind us. I've wanted to do that for so long, he murmured against my lips. Me too, I kept imagining what it would be like, but reality is so much better. Come here, he led me to the couch, pulling me down beside him. We curled up together, my head on his chest, his arms wrapped around me. It felt like coming home. Can I tell you something? I asked after a while. Always. I used to have these fantasies about us. Nothing inappropriate, I added quickly. Just domestic stuff, waking up together, making breakfast, going to the farmer's market on Saturday mornings. All these normal, boring couple things that I wanted so badly but convinced myself I could never have. Why did you think you couldn't have them? Because I was so sure that once you knew about my diabetes, everything would change. That you'd either run the other way or start treating me like I was made of glass. I never imagined this, you actually wanting to be with me, all of me. Ethan, look at me. I lifted my head to meet his eyes. Your diabetes is a part of you, yes, it's something we'll have to navigate together, but it's not what defines you. When I look at you, I see the guy who quotes obscure literature at 3 in the morning, who burns popcorn at least once a week but still insists on making it from scratch, who ugly cries at sad movies and laughs at the worst puns. That's who I fell in love with. I do not ugly cry. You absolutely do. I have photographic evidence from when we watched that documentary about the penguins. I laughed, wiping at my eyes. Okay, fine, I ugly cry, but in my defense, that penguin's journey was very moving. It was, he agreed, kissing the top of my head. And watching you get emotional about it was one of the moments I knew I was completely gone for you. We stayed like that for hours, talking and kissing and just being together. It felt like everything I'd been afraid to hope for, and I sent up a silent prayer that I wouldn't do anything to mess it up. 3 months into our relationship, I got a call that would test everything we'd built together. Honey, your father and I are coming to visit next weekend, my mother announced without preamble. We haven't seen you in months and we want to make sure you're taking care of yourself. I closed my eyes, pressing my fingers to my temples. Mom, you don't need to do that, I'm fine. You say you're fine, but after what happened in November, we're worried. You ended up in the hospital, Ethan. Do you know how terrifying it was to get that call? I know, and I'm sorry I scared you, but I promise I'm managing everything better now. We're still coming, we've already booked the hotel. Her tone brooked no argument. And we'd like to meet Daniel. You've mentioned him several times and I'd like to put a face to the name. My stomach dropped. Daniel. Your roommate, the one who saved your life when you collapsed. There was something in her voice, a knowing quality that made me nervous. Unless there's something else you'd like to tell us about him. I looked over at Daniel, who was sitting at the kitchen table working on a design project, completely oblivious to the panic currently flooding through me. We hadn't talked about telling my parents about our relationship yet. We'd been so focused on building our foundation that we hadn't even discussed the whole coming out to family thing. It's complicated, I finally managed. Ethan Michael Peterson, are you dating your roommate? Maybe. Maybe, I could hear the smile in her voice now. Sweetheart, it's either yes or no. Yes, I admitted. Yes, we're together, have been for about 3 months now. And you didn't tell us because? Because everything was so new and I didn't want to jinx it. And honestly, Mom, I wasn't sure how you and Dad would react. She was quiet for a moment. Baby, your father and I have known you were gay since you were 15. We've been waiting for you to bring someone home for years. Why would you think we wouldn't be supportive? It's not about being gay, it's about the diabetes thing. Daniel knows about my condition and he's been amazing about it, but I was worried that you'd think he was only with me out of some misguided sense of obligation or guilt about what happened. Ethan, honey, anyone who's been taking care of you through all this and still chooses to be with you clearly cares about you for the right reasons. We're going to love him because he makes you happy, not in spite of anything. Tears welled up in my eyes. Thanks, Mom. Now, we'll be there Friday evening. Make sure your apartment is presentable and please, for the love of God, have real food in the fridge, not just takeout containers and energy drinks. After I hung up, Daniel looked over at me with raised eyebrows. Everything okay? My parents are coming to visit next weekend. Okay, that's good, right? You haven't seen them in a while. They want to meet you, and they know we're together. His eyes widened. Oh, how did they? My mom has a sixth sense about these things, always has. I walked over to him, wrapping my arms around his shoulders from behind. Are you okay with this? I know it's sudden and meeting the parents is kind of a big step. Are you kidding? I'm thrilled. He turned in his chair to face me properly. I've been wanting to tell people about us, show you off, I just wasn't sure if you were ready. I'm ready, terrified but ready. Your parents won't bite, will they? No, but my mom will absolutely interrogate you about your intentions toward her son. Fair warning. He laughed, pulling me down onto his lap. My intentions are entirely honorable, and also maybe slightly less than honorable depending on the context. Daniel, I swatted his shoulder, but I was laughing too. The week leading up to my parents' visit was a flurry of activity. We deep cleaned the apartment, went grocery shopping for actual ingredients instead of our usual collection of whatever was easy, and I stress-ate my way through 3 packages of glucose tablets that weren't even necessary because my blood sugar was fine. You're going to make yourself sick, Daniel observed as I paced the living room for the 100th time on Friday evening. What if they don't like you? What if they think you're just with me because you feel sorry for me? What if? Ethan, stop! He caught me mid-pace, holding me still. They're going to love me because I love you, and if they're even half as wonderful as you've described them, then they'll see that I make you happy, and that's all that will matter. You really think so? I know so. Now come here and kiss me before they arrive. I was in the middle of doing exactly that when the doorbell rang. They're early, I hissed, jumping away from Daniel like we'd been caught doing something illicit. They're your parents, not the morality police. But he straightened his shirt and ran a hand through his hair anyway. I opened the door to find my mother, all 5 feet 2 inches of her, beaming up at me. Baby boy! She pulled me into a hug before I could even say hello, and behind her my father smiled his quiet smile and waited his turn. Hi Mom, hi Dad! I hugged them both, breathing in my mother's familiar perfume and my father's cologne. Come in, please. They wheeled their overnight bags into the apartment, and I saw my mother's eyes immediately lock onto Daniel. He stood near the couch, looking nervous but determined, and I felt a surge of affection for him. You must be Daniel, my mother said, walking straight over to him and pulling him into a hug before he could even offer his hand. Thank you for taking care of our boy. It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Peterson, Daniel said, returning the hug with good grace. And Ethan takes pretty good care of himself, I just get to be there for the ride. Oh, I like him, my mother announced to the room at large. He's sweet and he's handsome, you did good, honey. Mom, please don't embarrass me in the first 5 minutes. Embarrassing you is my job as a mother. You'll understand someday when you have kids of your own. My father finally stepped forward, shaking Daniel's hand with a firm grip. David Peterson, good to meet you, son. You too, sir. None of that, sir, business. David is fine, he clapped Daniel on the shoulder. Now how about we order some dinner, I'm starving. And Maureen here insisted we couldn't eat until we got here. We settled on Thai food, and over dinner my mother proceeded to do exactly what I'd warned Daniel about. Interrogate him about everything from his job to his family to his intentions toward me. So you're a graphic designer? She asked between bites of pad thai. Yes, ma'am, I work for a firm downtown, but I also do some freelance work on the side. And you grew up here in Chicago? Suburbs, actually, Naperville. My parents still live there. Brothers or sisters? One younger sister, she's in college right now studying architecture. And how did you and Ethan meet? Through a roommate matching service, actually. I'd just gotten out of a bad relationship and needed a new place, and Ethan was looking for someone to split the rent with. My mother's eyes sharpened with interest. Bad relationship. Mom, I warned. What? I'm just making conversation. Daniel squeezed my hand under the table. It's okay. Yeah, I was with someone for about 2 years. Turned out he was cheating on me for most of it. It was rough for a while, but then I met Ethan and everything else kind of faded into the background. Well, his loss is our gain, my mother declared. And speaking of gains, Ethan, you look healthier than the last time I saw you. Have you been taking care of yourself? I have. My A1C is the best it's been in years, actually. Thanks in no small part to this one, I added, nodding at Daniel. He's been amazing about helping me stay on track. I really don't do much, Daniel protested. He does everything, I contradicted. He learned how to count carbs, he comes to my doctor appointments, he keeps emergency supplies everywhere. Last week he even took a CPR course that included training on how to use a glucagon injection, just in case. My mother's eyes got misty. Daniel, honey, you didn't have to do all that. Yes, I did, he said simply. Because I love him and I want to make sure I can take care of him if something happens. My father, who'd been quiet for most of the meal, spoke up. That's what you do when you love someone. You show up, you learn, you do whatever it takes. He looked at Daniel with approval. You're a good man, Daniel. Thank you, sir. I mean, David. After dinner, we moved to the living room for coffee and dessert. My mother had brought a sugar-free cheesecake, bless her, and we all enjoyed generous slices while talking about everything and nothing. So when did you two realize you had feelings for each other? My mother asked, because apparently we hadn't had enough emotional conversations for one evening. Daniel and I exchanged glances. Should I tell them or do you want to? I asked. You tell it better. So I did. I told them about the 6 months of hiding my feelings, about the night I'd collapsed and Daniel found out about my diabetes, about the difficult conversations that followed and how we'd slowly rebuilt trust and eventually admitted our feelings for each other. I'm not proud of how I handled things, I finished. Hiding my condition from Daniel was wrong and it almost cost me everything, but it also taught me that I can't let fear dictate my life. Sometimes you have to be vulnerable even when it's terrifying. My mother reached over and squeezed my hand. I'm proud of you, baby, for having the courage to let someone in and for recognizing that you deserve to be loved exactly as you are. Even with the complicated medical stuff. Especially with the complicated medical stuff. Anyone can love someone who's easy. It takes a special person to love someone with challenges and choose to face those challenges together. Your mother's right, my father added, and Daniel here seems like exactly that kind of special person. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of activity. My parents took us out to dinner at their favorite restaurant from when they used to live in Chicago. We went to the Art Institute, where Daniel spent an hour explaining various design principles to my father, who listened with genuine interest. We had brunch at a cafe near our apartment, and my mother told embarrassing stories about my childhood that made Daniel laugh so hard he nearly snorted coffee out his nose. Sunday afternoon, as they were packing up to head back home, my mother pulled me aside for a private conversation. He's wonderful, Ethan, truly. I know I got really lucky. You both did. I can see how much he loves you, but I can also see how much you love him. You light up when he's around. Is it that obvious? To a mother, always, she hugged me tight. I'm so happy for you, sweetheart. You deserve this happiness, and I'm glad you found someone who sees you for exactly who you are. Thanks, Mom, that means everything. When they finally left, with promises to visit again soon and demands that we come home for the holidays, Daniel and I collapsed onto the couch in exhaustion. Well, he said, pulling me against his side, that went better than expected. They loved you, I knew they would, but it's still a relief to have it confirmed. Your mom made me promise to take care of you. She makes everyone promise that. And your dad told me that if I ever hurt you, he knows people who can make me disappear. I jerked upright. He did not. Okay, no, he didn't, but he did tell me very seriously that you're precious to him and that he trusts me to treat you well. And what did you say? I told him that hurting you would be like hurting myself, that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me and I plan to spend a very long time proving that I deserve you. I kissed him then, deep and slow and full of all the love I felt for this man who'd stuck by me through everything. I love you, I murmured against his lips. I love you too, now and always. Spring came to Chicago with its usual unpredictability, warm days interspersed with sudden cold snaps that kept everyone guessing about what to wear. Daniel and I had settled into a comfortable rhythm, and life felt almost perfect. We told his parents about us too, a nerve-wracking video call that had ended with his mother crying happy tears and his father awkwardly asking if we wanted advice about home renovation, which was apparently his love language. But perfect never lasts forever, and I should have known that something would eventually disrupt our happiness. It started with a project at school. My thesis advisor, Dr. Margaret Chen, called me into her office one Tuesday afternoon with news that made my stomach drop. Ethan, I have an opportunity for you, she said, her eyes bright with excitement. The department has been asked to recommend a graduate student for a prestigious fellowship at Oxford. It's a 6-month position, fully funded, working with Professor James Hartford on his research into contemporary American literature. Oxford as in England. The very same. It's a remarkable opportunity, Ethan, the kind of thing that could really launch your academic career, and I think you'd be perfect for it. 6 months is a long time. It is, but think about what you'd gain. Experience working with one of the leading scholars in your field, international connections, a line on your CV that would make you stand out for any academic position you apply for. She leaned forward. I know you have personal considerations, but this is your future we're talking about. Personal considerations? That was one way to put it. 6 months away from Daniel, from my endocrinologist, from everything familiar. 6 months navigating a new healthcare system in a foreign country with my complicated medical condition. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course, but I need an answer by Friday. The fellowship starts in 2 months. I walked home in a daze, my mind spinning. This was everything I'd been working toward, the kind of opportunity that people in my field dreamed about. But it meant leaving Daniel for half a year just as our relationship was really taking root. When I got home, Daniel was in the kitchen making dinner, humming along to music playing from his phone. He looked so happy, so perfectly content that I almost couldn't bear to tell him. Hey, you're home, he turned to greet me with a smile that faltered when he saw my expression. What's wrong? We need to talk. Those 4 words seemed to drain all the color from his face. Okay, that sounds ominous. I told him about the fellowship, watching his expression shift from confusion to understanding to something that looked like resignation. That's amazing, Ethan, he said when I finished. Congratulations. I haven't said yes yet. But you're going to, right? This is your dream. Oxford, working with a renowned scholar, building your career. It's 6 months, Daniel, 6 months apart. I know, he turned back to the stove, stirring the pasta sauce with more force than necessary. But we'll figure it out. People do long distance all the time. Do they successfully? Some of them do. He set down the spoon, turning to face me. Look, I'm not going to lie and say I'm thrilled about this. The thought of you being gone for 6 months makes me want to lock all the doors and hide you in the apartment. But this is your career, your future. I can't be the reason you pass up an opportunity like this. You're not a reason, you're the person I love, and that matters. It does matter, but your dreams matter too. He crossed the kitchen to take my hands. If you don't take this fellowship and you end up resenting me for it, that would destroy us faster than any amount of distance. I could never resent you. Maybe not consciously, but it would be there under the surface. The what if, the path not taken. He squeezed my hands. Take the fellowship, Ethan, we'll make it work. What about my diabetes? 6 months in a foreign country dealing with a new healthcare system. We'll research it together, figure out how healthcare works in the UK, make sure you have all your supplies, set up regular video calls with your endocrinologist. There are solutions to all of these problems. You make it sound so simple. It's not simple, it's going to be hard, and we're both going to hate parts of it. But you know what would be harder? Watching you give up on your dreams because you're afraid. Tears spilled down my cheeks. When did you become so wise? I've always been wise, you just didn't notice because you were too busy being dramatic. He wiped away my tears with his thumbs. I love you, Ethan, and part of loving you means supporting you even when it's hard for me. I love you too, so much. We held each other in the kitchen, the pasta sauce bubbling away forgotten on the stove, and I felt the weight of the decision settling over me. He was right. I knew he was right, but that didn't make it any easier. Over the next few days, Daniel threw himself into helping me prepare for the fellowship. He researched the National Health Service in the UK, contacted diabetes organizations in Oxford, and even found an online community of type 1 diabetics living in England who could offer advice. Look at this, he said one evening, showing me his laptop screen. There's a diabetes clinic right near Oxford University. They have excellent reviews and they're experienced with helping international students manage their condition. You've really thought of everything, haven't you? I'm trying. I want to make sure you're safe, even if I can't be there to check on you myself. We could video call every day, I suggested, maybe even twice a day, morning and evening. I'd like that, although with the time difference we'll have to be strategic about timing. 6 hours ahead, right? So if I call you in my morning, it'll be early afternoon for you. We'll make it work. He closed the laptop, pulling me into his arms. We'll make all of it work because the alternative is unacceptable. On Friday, I went to Dr. Chen's office and accepted the fellowship. She was thrilled, immediately launching into logistics about paperwork and housing and travel arrangements. I nodded along, half listening, my mind already calculating how many days until I'd have to leave Daniel. 62 days, not nearly enough time. The weeks that followed were a strange mix of excitement and dread. There was so much to do, paperwork to fill out, arrangements to make, but underlying it all was the knowledge that every day brought me closer to leaving. Daniel became almost obsessively focused on making memories. He planned elaborate dates, took hundreds of photos, insisted we try all the restaurants we'd been meaning to visit. We stayed up late every night, talking and making love and holding each other like we could somehow store up enough contact to last through the months apart. "I'm going to miss this," I said one night, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat. "Miss what specifically?" "My devastatingly good looks, my sparkling wit. All of it, but mostly just being close to you, knowing you're here, being able to reach out and touch you whenever I want. We'll have video calls." "It's not the same." "No," he agreed quietly, "it's not, but it's what we have and we'll make the most of it." 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, we had our first real fight about the fellowship. It started over something stupid, a miscommunication about dinner plans, but it quickly escalated, months of suppressed anxiety and fear bubbling over. "You've been distant lately," Daniel said, his voice tight with frustration. "Every time I try to talk about the fellowship or make plans for how we'll stay connected, you change the subject." "I'm not being distant, I'm just trying to focus on the time we have left instead of dwelling on the separation." "That's not focusing on us, that's avoiding reality. We need to talk about this, Ethan. We need to make plans and figure out how we're going to handle the hard parts." "Maybe I don't want to handle the hard parts." The words burst out of me, louder than I intended. "Maybe I'm tired of always having to plan and calculate and manage every aspect of my life. Maybe I just want to enjoy being with you without thinking about all the ways this could go wrong." "This isn't about your diabetes, Ethan. This is about you running away from difficult conversations because they make you uncomfortable." "That's not fair." "Isn't it? You did the same thing when we first moved in together, hiding your condition because you were afraid of how I'd react. Now you're doing it again, hiding from the reality of this separation because you don't want to face how hard it's going to be." His words hit like a slap. "I'm not hiding, I'm here, aren't I? I accepted the fellowship even though it means leaving you. I'm trying, Daniel." "Are you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're already halfway out the door emotionally. Like you're preparing yourself to not need me so it'll hurt less when you leave." "That's not true." "Then prove it. Talk to me about what you're feeling instead of shutting down every time the conversation gets hard." I stared at him, my chest tight with emotions I didn't know how to name. "You want to know what I'm feeling? I'm terrified. I'm terrified that 6 months apart is going to change things between us, that you'll realize you're better off without someone whose medical condition requires constant vigilance, that I'll come back and you'll have moved on, found someone easier to love." "Ethan." "And I'm angry," I continued, the words flowing now that I'd started. "I'm angry that I have to choose between my career and my relationship. I'm angry that my diabetes makes everything more complicated. I'm angry that we finally found each other and now I have to leave." "You're not choosing between your career and our relationship," Daniel said, his voice gentler now. "You're choosing your career and I'm choosing to wait for you. That's not the same thing." "What if I don't want you to wait? What if that's too much to ask?" "You're not asking, I'm offering." He crossed the room to where I stood, taking my face in his hands. "I love you, that doesn't have an expiration date or a distance limit. 6 months, 6,000 miles, none of that changes how I feel about you." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I know myself and I know what I want. And what I want is you, in whatever form I can have you. If that means video calls and counting down the days until you come home, then that's what I'll do." I broke down then, sobbing into his chest as he held me. All the fear and anxiety I'd been holding back came pouring out, and he just stood there, solid and steady, weathering my storm. "I'm sorry," I gasped when I could finally speak again. "I'm sorry for pushing you away and for being scared and for making this harder than it needs to be." "You're allowed to be scared, I'm scared too. But we face it together, okay? No more hiding, no more avoiding the hard conversations." "Together," I agreed. That night, we stayed up until dawn, talking through every fear and worry and logistical concern. We made plans for video calls, discussed how we'd handle emergencies, talked about what we'd do if things got too hard. It wasn't easy, and there were moments when we both got emotional, but by the time the sun came up, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. We had a plan, we had each other, and maybe, just maybe, that would be enough. The day I left for Oxford dawned gray and drizzly, fitting weather for such a melancholy occasion. Daniel insisted on driving me to the airport, even though I'd suggested taking a cab to spare him the pain of a long goodbye. "I want every possible minute with you," he'd said. "Even if it's just sitting in traffic on the way to O'Hare." We barely spoke during the drive, both of us lost in our own thoughts. Daniel's hand found mine across the center console, our fingers interlacing like they'd done 1,000 times before, and I tried to memorize the feeling. At the airport, he helped me with my bags, walking me as far as he could before security. When we couldn't delay any longer, he pulled me into a fierce hug. "6 months," he said into my hair, "that's all, and then you'll be home." 6 months, I repeated, but it felt like forever. "Call me when you land, okay? Even if it's the middle of the night here, I want to know you got there safely." "I will. And remember to check your blood sugar more frequently during the flight. The pressure changes and sitting for so long can affect your levels." "I know we went over this." "I know we did, He pulled back to look at me, and I saw tears in his eyes that matched my own. "I'm going to miss you so much." "I'm going to miss you too." I kissed him, not caring who was watching, pouring everything I felt into it. "I love you, Daniel." "I love you too. Now go before I change my mind and kidnap you." Walking away from him was one of the hardest things I'd ever done. I kept turning back, waving, until I finally lost sight of him in the crowd. Then I found a quiet corner and let myself cry for a few minutes before pulling myself together and heading through security. The flight to London was long and uncomfortable, my blood sugar refusing to cooperate despite my best efforts. By the time I landed at Heathrow, I was exhausted and slightly hypoglycemic, fumbling with glucose tablets while trying to navigate the airport. I called Daniel as soon as I had my luggage, needing to hear his voice even though I knew he was probably asleep. He answered on the second ring. "Hey, you made it." "I made it, did I wake you?" "Yeah, but I don't care, how are you feeling?" "Tired, my blood sugar's been a bit wonky, but nothing I can't handle." "Did you eat on the plane?" "Some, the food options weren't great for carb counting." "Make sure you eat something soon, okay, and get some rest, you sound exhausted." "I will, I just wanted to hear your voice." "I'm glad you called, it feels like you've been gone for weeks already instead of just hours." "I know what you mean." I leaned against a wall, closing my eyes. "This is going to be harder than I thought." "We'll get through it day by day, okay?" "Day by day." The next few weeks were a blur of adjustment. Oxford was beautiful, the university even more impressive than I'd imagined. Professor Hartford was brilliant and demanding, pushing me to think in new ways about my research. The other fellows in the program were friendly and welcoming, inviting me to pubs and study groups. But none of it filled the Daniel-shaped hole in my chest. We talked every day, sometimes twice a day, just like we'd planned. Morning calls where I'd tell him about my day ahead while he was getting ready. If this story touched your heart, show your support by liking this video. Subscribe to our channel for more powerful stories like this. Your support keeps these stories alive, thank you.